Alrighty, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another week, another episode of Let's Talk About This Way. First off, a quick shout out to the band Hannah. Thank you guys so much for allowing me to use your music. Another shout out to my friend Zeke over here at XYZ Studios. This has been a great experience, and I'm super excited to start bringing guests over here. Alrighty, today's episode. I got to tell you, I'm super excited to have this guest around. One of the Antelope Valley legends out there from California, two-time MVP, all-pro, flag football quarterback of Illumination, the legend himself, the Mr. Golf guy who I always say, put this kid on the Corn Ferry Tour. Give him a shot. I think he could do it. Sean Bozigian. Sean, how you doing, bud?
Doing great, man. That was the best intro I've ever gotten. So
I think so. I think you would do it.
I appreciate that. I don't think I deserve it all, but I appreciate it. Super honored to be here, dude. This is exciting. When I caught wind of you starting the pod, obviously, yeah. My first reaction was like, perfect fit, you know?
Yeah.
So I hope you feel that way too.
Yeah.
And how's it been so far? I know it's probably a lot getting going.
I love that, brother. Thank you. It's been fun. It's been fun. I think since I started, I realized as I watched some of the earlier episodes, things that I've already grown from a bit.
Right.
I talked about it in a previous episode, but one of the icks or things that kind of were bugging me for a bit was that when I first started, I think it's just more out of nervousness. After every little thing I'd say, I'd be like, so things like that are getting better. Doing this type of studio quality has been really cool, and I'm super excited to see how it's going to look to our viewers and the listeners out there. So it's been great. There's the right there, but no, it's been
hard.
good.
And when you like listen back at yourself talking,
Yeah,
you pick apart everything.
Well, you're
so
your
that's
biggest
natural,
critic,
but,
right?
Yeah, just ton of credit, dude. Obviously, like anytime anybody does something like this and goes out on a wing and gets uncomfortable, I think it's super cool. So again, thank you for having me, and I'm glad you're doing it, man.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. I'm glad you're the first one to try the studio out,
Yeah,
too.
me too.
So
This is
great.
beautiful. Super nice.
Nah, man, I love it. Sean, so real quick, before we get into the episode, we got a big week coming up here. A lot of fans of this sport are super excited. It's the big one coming up. And just to make sure we're on the same page here, on the count of three, after three, I want us to both say exactly what tournament's coming up here next week.
Okay.
You ready for this?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. The Masters. There you
go.
Yeah.
Of course. Can't miss it. The tournament of the year, at least in my opinion. I think it's the one that I look forward to the most. It's also the first major of the year, so it kind of gets the juices flowing. Who you picking?
You know what? It's funny. I was about to ask you that. So I am going to go with that one kid. I feel like at this point, I can't not bet on this kid to win it all. I feel at one point his win is going to come to fruition, and all the money I put into this kid is finally going to get back to me. I'm going to go with the boy. You already know what it is. I feel like everyone out there knows this, especially like the group texts that I have, who when we talk about this are like, he's always going to go with that kid. And they're probably saying right now, there he goes, Thigala all over again. So Thigala. The kids do. I think he can do it. I think he gets so close sometimes, and then it just collapses a little bit at the end. But for this Masters, I think he does it.
Okay,
you know I'm betting on him again.
Yeah. And
for you, Sahith, if you're out there and you're somehow listening to this, you got this, buddy. I believe in you.
You got it, man.
And I know this episode releases after the tournament, but I will hope that it's with you having that green jacket on, watching this being like, this kid believed in me. My God.
There you go.
And then we'll put you on the podcast.
Speaking it into fruition. I love it, man.
Yeah, that's right.
Great.
Who do you got?
I'm going to go with Oberg. I think he's just kind of due. Last year was his first year playing in the tournament, and he, I think, finished like solo second, solo third.
Yeah.
Obviously has a couple wins under his belt now.
Yeah.
Just kind of, I think the Masters, you need like nerves of steel.
Yeah, that's true.
I think he has it, and either him or Morikawa. I'm going to throw two out there just so I can cover myself a little bit. But I think one of those two, it's my pick, right?
Yeah. I'm surprised you didn't say DeChambeau.
I love Bryson. I think last year he kind of had his moment in the sun, and I think that's kind of come and gone, and I think it's time for somebody else. So,
all right, well, there's the picks, guys.
Yeah,
there's the picks. We'll see where we ended up after this episode gets released. Hopefully, one of our guys did it. It could be a completely unknown person too. We all know how that goes as well.
Exactly.
Anyways, so Masters out of the way here. Sean, you and I grew up with each other in California.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, I've told people the story how I knew you just a bit before then. You remember doing AYSO soccer?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
That's the first time I ever saw Sean. He was actually on one of the teams. I think it was probably maybe U10, U12.
Yeah, probably something.
And I just will never forget. I see this kid go for one of the filthiest slide tackles I've seen at such a young age, and I'm like, oh my gosh! Like, kid gets up. That is scrap. I mean, he's got grass stains all over. I'm like, my gosh, this kid plays aggressive. To find out later on, oh, here's Sean Bozique in high school.
Thought you were going to talk about like a cool goal I scored or something, not a dirty slide tackle.
It was just, I don't know why that slide tackle just is so vivid to me. I mean, it was filthy at that age. Like, it just was a different caliber play. I just didn't really like see too much. I mean, like, we're 10, 12. We're kind of just going around, still messing around with the soccer ball as much. Getting a little competitive, but you've always had a competitive spirit.
Yeah, and it's funny because soccer, obviously, like I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit. We played soccer together in high school. Right. Soccer was always my second sport, so baseball was always my love. And soccer was fun because I always got to treat it as like exactly like that.
Yeah.
I just didn't have a lot of pressure. Baseball, I put so much pressure on myself.
Yeah.
And soccer was the other way around where it was like, just go out there and have fun. And I did. I played super aggressively and I was just like loose, and I really loved it. The more I look back on like my times playing soccer, the more I'm like, man, that was just so much fun. And I think it was like, as a kid, you build yourself up for like the sports you love. I'm sure football is the same way where and sometimes it can be the opposite where like you play better or looser or have more fun if you some of that pressure is just off you. So yeah, man, soccer was always
true.
Great.
I mean, you've always been good at anything. You've been one of the most athletic friends that I have here. What is it? You got football, soccer, golf, which is another thing, which do you ever wish we had a golf? Did we have a golf team at high school?
We did, but it coincided with baseball season. So that's why I could never play it. And it's funny because I didn't play golf. I mean, I played a little bit growing up, but it wasn't until like later on when we went to NAU and I worked at Forest Highlands, which was like a top tier country club in Flagstaff, and that's when I really like started playing golf. So I didn't play much as a kid. I wish I would have because I'd probably be a lot better than I am now. But never really played as much growing up. We'd go out and play around a little bit, go to the driving range, go to Rancho Vista, that kind of thing, but never really like seriously.
Okay, but out of our group of friends, I mean, like, I know we know some mutual people, but like, if you really think of like our like group that we always hang out with, you're one of the best ones out of the group. What's your handicap right now?
I think I'm like 4.8.
Okay.
Yeah.
4.8. Are you kidding me?
So the thing about golf handicap, and this is like before I got more into golf, this is like a 4.8 handicap player, a 4.8 index. They don't always shoot like a par 72. You're not always going to shoot 76, 77, right? It just means that like out of, I forget how it's calculated, but it's kind of stupid. It's like, it doesn't mean that's your average of 4.8 over. It just means that over a course of so many, you've had enough good rounds that count towards that. So, but I can keep up, I guess.
You definitely can keep up. I'm saying over here, and fellow my friends over here are most likely like me, where if we give ourselves a handicap to look at, we're probably at plus 25, plus 26. I mean, we are fighting to stay under 100. So you don't have to deal with that.
No, not as much
You know what
anymore.
I mean? If I could be in the 80s consistently, I'd be happy.
Yeah.
You know?
It goes back to, so at Flagstaff, I worked at Forest Highlands, and I still gripped the club at that time like a baseball bat. Like I had no idea what I was doing, but I worked at this fantastic club, and one of the biggest perks was that after, I think it was like 2 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we could go play for free. Free. And this is like a $300 plus at the time, right? Like God knows what it is now.
It's also ranked one of the highest courses in Arizona.
It's amazing. Like for any listeners out there, look up Forest Highlands Canyon golf course. It's still like, I've had the honor of playing a lot of great golf courses. It's still like in my top 3 probably. But I would get to go out, and a lot of the guys that I worked with they were like coming from all over the country as interns. They were trying to get their like PGA Tour cards, not to go play on the tour, but to be like instructors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I got to play with a lot of those guys. So as you can imagine, like I worked there 2 summers, got to play, I don't know, dozens of rounds with them.
And it's a good course.
And it's
challenging
a great course,
too,
challenging. So I got so much better those like couple years. And then obviously like after college, was able to play a lot more too. But yeah, it was super fun.
God, man, I'm telling you. Well, you're in high school. We go to high school together. You played soccer. You played baseball. Couldn't play golf because it coincided.
Yeah.
And obviously baseball being your love. So did you know as you were in high school that this was going to be in the field that you go to career-wise? It has to be something to do with baseball because of the love for it.
Man, I would love to say yes. Like I envy the people that have that in the back of their mind. Like I remember being at NAU and you'd meet people that were like, hey, I'm here because I'm getting this degree and then I'm taking over the family business, or like, hey, I've always wanted to be a doctor, or, they just had it all carved out, and that was not me, right? I kind of lucked into that. I was a business major in college, and I look back and I'm like, it still shocks me because I'm very much like a planner and a thinker now. But at the time, like I look back to Sean at 21, like junior, senior year of college, and I'm like a year away from graduating, and I still had no idea what I wanted to do, you know?
Yeah, I don't.
And I know it's not like super rare for that to be the case, but it just kind of, they say like the frontal lobe doesn't develop till 25, and I think that was definitely the case for me because I look back at like my thought process then, and I'm like, what was I thinking? You know, I wasn't. But long story short, to tie back into the baseball thing, at some point there, I was able to get an internship for a minor league baseball team, and that's kind of like what started the whole thing. So it was a natural kind of combination of my two loves, but I'd be lying if I say I like drew it up that way the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I don't think you're wrong at all. I truly believe that our frontal lobe doesn't develop until at least then, if that, not later.
Yeah.
Just because there's plenty of people. It's funny too, that feeling. I feel like we can all relate to that. A good chunk of us can relate to that, even though we can hear about out there. It's not talked about as much, at least in our scope of what we do in our everyday things in life. So if we're not hearing it enough, we're not seeing it enough, we start feeling a little alone in that, being like, how do all these people know exactly what they're doing? They come up to me and they tell me, oh yeah, I'm super excited to go down this path. And then you're just, well, I don't really know exactly. I kind of feel like I have a bit of an idea, but you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's scary. And I remember going to like career fairs in college, and I just like never wanted, you know, all the corporations from the Valley would be there. And it just like none of it resonated with me or interested me. And I was like, for a while, I was like, is there something wrong with me? Like all I knew to this point was you go to college and you get the degree and then you get the job and you work up the corporate ladder and whatever. And that just wasn't ever something that interested me. And it's weird that I just didn't think about it more at the time. I'm super lucky that I had the opportunities that I did that kind of got me away from that. But it is kind of interesting how you just kind of go through the motions, and then at some point it clicks and you're like, man, I got to do something here.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to bring it back a little bit to back in high school, because I know in college you start forming a little bit about what am I going to do, and then it starts clicking a little bit later on. You get this internship, but in high school, while we're going through our years there, what were you thinking? I know let's not think too much about like which college you're going to go to, because I know that didn't really, for me at least, I'm sure some started planning out freshman year, like I'm going to go to these universities, prestigious. But for me, I'm like, my junior year starts, I'm like, what can I start doing? I guess that's time to start looking around. But what were you just thinking in general? If you were thinking of any type of career, what you were going to do at that point?
I think it was always business for me.
Sure.
Or like some kind of the business scene, management, numbers, math. Like those were always the things that interested me most in school. And so I think that part of it was kind of easy and something that I always knew, but it's such a broad major, business, especially management, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, just graduate from business management school and become a manager. You know, it's such like a broad degree that, you know, I just knew I wanted to do something in the business field. So at least I had that, right?
Sure.
Like that was always something that interested me. But in terms of like particularly what I wanted to do or throughout high school, like obviously for those of you that don't know, we went to a Paraclete. It's a private Catholic school, college prep school. So a lot of the students that we went with were the ones that were like, hey, I've been being groomed to go to USC since I was 4 years old. Like this is what I'm doing. I have to get this GPA. I have to have this many extracurriculars and I need to apply at this time. And then once I get there, I'm going to do this and this and this. And I think we were both kind of in the bucket where that maybe wasn't the thing. It wasn't that we were bad students or anything like that. It just that maybe we just didn't have that all laid out in front of us like that, which in some ways is a blessing because it allows you to carve your own path, right?
I love that take. To be honest, I didn't think too much about that. It's a great take to look at. And it's true. Everything that's led up to this point happened for a reason, for us to be solidified in what we're doing and what we're going to be aiming for in the future. And it's true. I think about it, my parents put me in that school because I'm sure their thought was, we want to give our son the best opportunity we can and where we're at in that area, right? Yeah. But you're right. There are some that just had this plan right away. It was like, I'm going to this university because my parents are alumni. So they'll know that network, but I have to do this. I have to do that. I can't really mess around. Right. And for us, it's just, we got blessed with this. And we're trying to figure this out. But.
Absolutely. But, I think it was really junior year, you start thinking about it. And I wanted to go to San Diego State. That was like my goal. I had friends that were going.
I remember that. I think
I had like a 3.8 GPA in high school. Like again, I wasn't a bad student by any means. I didn't get into San Diego State. So I applied at a number of different schools in California. I applied to NAU and Colorado State. And NAU at the time was like Now it's a little bit more of a household name, I feel like. At the time, as you know, like it just wasn't. And so it was always like, I forget how we learned about it, but at some point,
for that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
At some point it was like, let's go check it out. And then maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. You can throw that story in.
No. So I'll throw a little buffer in there. So I remember it because we were at our buddy Justin's house.
Okay.
And it was him who I believe got an email from them about applying.
Makes sense.
Because back then you didn't need SAT scores, I think, right? What was it about? Or there was something about the admission requirement after taking our SATs that we were like, oh, we don't have to focus on that. It's just a certain GPA.
Yeah, I remember they were marketing very heavily to out of state.
Aggressive. Yes.
And so there were probably like loopholes that other in-state ones didn't allow that made it more of a appealing thing for us in California, I think.
Because I sucked at my SATs. I was horrible, man. Standardized testing is not my thing. I hope there's others that can relate it out to me because I don't want to be alone in that. But I studied so much. My parents signed me for workshops. It was horrible. I'm not good at the standardized testing stuff. But here we are at our buddy's house, and he's looking at a couple of emails, and he gets one from NAU. Mm-hmm. And then at that time, him and his dad were like, we're going to go visit the school. And I remember we were shown the video because we thought, NAU, I've never heard of that.
Right?
Like, yo, are you sure it's
Is this
legit?
a real school?
Yeah, there's ASU and U of A, Justin. I don't know about this. And so we saw a video Flagstaff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if this is jingling your memory at all, but this video Flagstaff showed a bunch of snow. And we're not used to snow. And so we said, oh, man, it looks cool. And then next thing you know, I think he starts asking around, like, do you guys want to go visit?
Yeah.
And then it becomes an option. It's like, oh, let's go look at the school. Why not? And it's a trip. I don't know if we were on winter break or what it was, but we went up there to go visit. And then I remember looking at the school and thinking, this is perfect.
Yeah.
This is what I needed. I didn't want to go to such a big university since we were at such a small school. And in my entire life, from kindergarten up into high school, was in a private school, right? Or private Catholics. That's a small group of people. Right. So NAU was just big enough in a small little town, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I remember we went up there and same thing. I've always loved that kind of like my favorite place growing up was Mammoth. Like I've always loved that kind of like small mountainy town,
right?
Cozy. And I remember going up there that first time and seeing it and just falling in love. Same thing. Yeah. And I think I went back and probably sat on it for a couple weeks, and then it just became like more and more evident that was the play. And I think we all kind of committed like at the same time. I think we all texted each other like, "Hey, I'm in," and there was 4 or 5 of us from that class that ended up going there. So super cool that it worked out and the way it did, right?
Well, yeah, it's unique. I don't know how many people get to go to college with some of their great buddies, some of their closest buds, like. That itself is a great way to transition into that new world.
And I think the way we did it was perfect where, we all lived in the same dorm freshman year.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
But then you look throughout the course of college and like we all carved our own paths in certain ways. I was on the baseball team, like you had a great friend group. We all remained in touch and
still play flag football.
Flag football and indoor soccer and like a lot of those things. We crossed paths multiple times, but it allowed us to spread our wings a little bit. And it wasn't so small that like, we hung out in high school all 4 years and then we hung out in college all 4 years. Like we were able to create our own paths a little bit and have new experiences and then still to this day be friends. Right. I don't know if you ever think about that. I think it's super cool, like the way that it just all played out and then kind of comes back together now.
Oh, I love it. I love our friends. I love our stories. I talk about this with Kelly quite a bit. When we first started dating, Kelly always told me, you have such a big network of friends. Like your circle's massive. Like how does that happen? I feel I've been blessed with some really unique scenarios where I've had some really long lifetime friends since kindergarten, meeting you guys in high school, and for us always being such a close clique in high school, right? Like our group. Man, Palmdale, it's the desert out there. We didn't have much going on. I mean, there were plenty of nights where we went to a parking lot of McDonald's over by that Albertsons. I don't know if it's an Albertsons anymore. And we weren't really going to parties or anything like that. We were just hanging around a parking lot and by McDonald's and kind of chat, catch up, joke around. And it was a blast. And just being around those group of people has always been amazing. And it's funny, those nights we'd be like, oh, let's go do something. Let's go, and we end up just all hanging out there and be like, call it a night. Let's go back home.
Or like playing flag football in a parking lot or whatever. Yeah,
No,
desert kids.
Desert life for sure. But no, it is really cool. And to be able to stay close with those people is amazing. And it does wonderful things for you in life. You get to see different chapters in someone's life, and that's beautiful to me. I think that's where it hits home, right? I get to see you as an example, us best, good buds in high school, staying close even in college. And that piece is important too. In college, we obviously started hanging out right away because that's all we knew. Then we slowly started broadening our group, and you did your baseball thing. I had a couple of my own buddies, and at the end, we networked them all together, right? And that was cool because it gives you more opportunities later down the road. So I get to see you from the AYSO days of soccer to high school to you going to college to you opening your own network up there, and then now in this life as a father and a husband.
Yeah.
It's a trip.
Super.
But it's
super
amazing.
Cool. Yeah, it really is. And same goes for you. And it's just feel super blessed the fact that we're still here, 10, 15 years later and getting to do this. So yeah.
I love it.
Honestly played out pretty perfectly.
It definitely did, you asking me. So I know we got off a little bit, but we're here at NAU now, right? You're starting to look at your courses, what you want to get your degree in, which is in business. During that time, and I know you're still kind of figuring out what exactly am I going to do? At least I know I got to get this degree. And in today's world, you need a degree to even get now an entry-level job. It is the new high school diploma, really. Did you have any doubts during that time as you're getting a business degree maybe I should have gone for another degree? Something that maybe clicked in your head like, ooh, I don't know.
No, I never really did. I always loved my business classes. There was never a point where I was thinking, hey, I maybe should have done something else or anything like that. I think by the time I started to have those doubts was already like close to graduation when I was trying to piece it all together. But to be fully honest, I loved the coursework that I had. Again, I really like finance and accounting. Like, I guess if I could go back again, maybe I would have specialized in finance or accounting, maybe.
Okay.
But that's stuff that you just don't know until you are out in the workforce and you really feel like on-job training and what you like to do and what you don't like to do. And, management's great. And I ended up being in various management roles that I still am in today in different capacities. So, no, I wouldn't have changed anything. It was more so just that, what's next? And there's not really like that direct path from business school that just drops you into something. Right. So I think that was really the only like scary thing, and the only thing that I really felt any sort of pressure on at the time, if you will.
Sure. Yeah. So you mentioned an internship.
Yeah.
So when did this internship come about? Was it your senior year, or did it come a little later in the junior year? Or when did this first talks as an internship start happening?
Yeah. Great question. So I did 4.5 years. Right. So it was the summer after my senior year before my little victory lap. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So it was that summer. It would have been summer of 2015. And I got this opportunity to go up to Spokane, Washington and work for a minor league baseball team, which is a very renowned minor league baseball team in that arena, if you will. And for those of you who don't know, minor league baseball, the way that you could describe it is, so there's various levels of minor league baseball. Right. So we were affiliated with the Texas Rangers at the time. It's now the Colorado Rockies, that team, but the Texas Rangers have various levels. So they have single A, double A, triple A, and then the major leagues. So if the Rangers draft an 18-year-old high school shortstop, he doesn't just go to Texas and start on the Rangers.
Yeah, he ain't going to the show right away.
He starts down actually in Arizona and then goes to single A and then double A and triple A. So we were a single A affiliate of the Texas Rangers. And what that means is that every year we would have just a new batch of kids that were coming and had goals of making the major leagues. Some of them, a small percentage would, most of them wouldn't. Right. And the reason that I mention that, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, is minor league baseball, I think I had this illusion that like I'm going to be on the field. You know those memes where it's like what your family and friends think you do versus like what you actually do?
Right. Yeah.
And for me, it would be like my family and friends think I'm like wheeling and dealing, making trades on the field in a suit. And really I'm like in an office selling ticket packages. So it's very much a business, a small business that just happens to be at a baseball stadium would be the biggest way that I could describe it, because we don't have like Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, who are going to be there 15 years that like you market around a particular player. Right. You really are selling entertainment. So you're selling from the time a fan gets out of the car, they hear the music, they smell the popcorn, they see the green grass, the on-field promotions, like everything. The team could win 20-0 or lose 20-0, but the experience is really what we were selling. So that's like the way that I describe it to people.
Sure.
But yeah, I got an internship up there, and really fell in love with it. I fell in love with the business model. I fell in love with the people I was working with. I knew that at that point, like working in sports, I kind of saw that that was an opportunity, and it combined two things that I loved. And so at that point, I got back to Flagstaff after that summer and was like, man, I just really like this.
Yeah.
And I happened to get a call from that team offering me a full-time job to start after I graduated. So like I said, it all just kind of lined up.
Yeah.
And it was just a great opportunity, like right from the get-go. And again, I just kind of lucked into it being such a perfect fit, I would say.
Yeah, that's great, brother. So when you realized, I'm going to take this job opportunity, what was the first job they offered you? Because I knew you grew a little bit in that.
Yeah, I did.
Too.
I did. So the first job I had was I was an account executive in the ticket department.
Okay,
so
sales. Yeah.
It was my first kind of entry into sales, and what that means on a day-to-day level is I was calling businesses in the area. So if you own a air conditioning company in Spokane, Washington, Sean would call you up, set a face-to-face appointment, and my pitch would be on why that company should either buy a ticket package for their employees or their customers to get them out that summer, or a big company event. We had areas of 10, 15, 20 on up to 200 people to rent out for an employee night, something like that. So that was my first job there.
Gotcha. I
probably went on a few hundred face-to-face appointments that first year before the season even started. And then, like you said, I thought I would go up there and be there a couple years and it might lead to something else. And I ended up just really falling in love with it. It was a great organization. The people that I got to work with were fantastic. I had a lot of doors open up for me within the organization. I ended up at the end of my time there being assistant general manager. So I saw various roles, got a ton of hands-on experience, and got to work at a baseball stadium for 6 years. So it was an awesome career.
Which your love for baseball just all coincided at one point. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it really was. And there's parts of it that like you do feel a little bit jaded by, and I started to feel that towards the end. Like as such an avid baseball fan, I started to I heard hundreds of national anthems, and it started to feel a little bit monotonous at the end. And I don't think that's rare for people that work in sports. And as somebody that loves baseball as much as I do, I always wanted to protect my love for the game and it never to feel like a burden. Because there are certain nights where the only thing standing between you and going home is a baseball game. So you don't have that same joy of watching 9 innings of baseball.
That is kind of, I never thought about that.
You're, quote unquote on the clock. But yeah, I mean, that's a very small complaint, and more than anything, it was a dream come true to be able to work in baseball, and something that I grew up loving, and just getting to go to work at a stadium every day was pretty special.
Yeah, I think you're the third person now that has talked about being in the sports industry of some sorts and some sort of job and have that feeling.
Really?
This feeling where either I had one guy who I hope to have on the show, my buddy, who was an athletic trainer for the Giants.
Yeah.
Who started feeling a certain way about the atmosphere and the work schedule, just because it can be a bit of a grind too in that atmosphere, and just being like, I love this game. Big fan of it, but I just, maybe to protect that sense of respect and love you have for the game, it's just not going to be this full-time thing I continue to go with.
Super true. And the thing that I loved working in sports the most wasn't that I got to watch baseball. It was that you work with very like-minded people.
Right.
There's a certain avatar of person that pursues sports as a career, and they happen to be people that we would probably get along with really well.
Yeah.
So that was probably my favorite part of it, is just some of my best friends today were people that I met up there.
That's
we
awesome.
all had similar interests. Sports Center's always going in the office. We have fantasy, you name it, leagues throughout the year, so you just work with very like-minded people. The trade-off in working in sports is two things. The money's not great unless you make it there's a tipping point where maybe it is if you get in ownership or you get to a certain level where then maybe it makes sense. But for the vast majority of people, it's not something you do if you're chasing money. And then the second thing is that it's not something you do if you're chasing time freedom, because it's you work very long hours, and living in Spokane, the summers were the best. I would put Spokane up there against anywhere in the country in terms of where I would want to be in the summers.
Yeah.
But you're spending 80% of your summers at the ballpark. So that started to wear on us a little bit. And I say us, Lauren was up there at that point too. But overall, I don't have many complaints, because it was a fantastic job and a fantastic, time in my life.
Yeah.
But there were pieces that we could feel were starting to crack and starting to lead us different directions.
Sure.
And, those were just some of the things that made that ultimate decision to get back down here, which I'm sure we'll get to.
Yeah, man. I'm happy you mentioned the pieces of why it started wearing on you a bit. I was going to ask you, how was the money? And what you just said about the money not being the greatest, especially if you're pursuing that. And there's nothing wrong with being money oriented, right? Like I'm very money oriented. I want to make the money because whatever I put out there, I want to get back in, right? So when I'm looking at that, I can only imagine, one, it's not that it's so diminishing, but you do feel like the love of the game is kind of being impacted right now, right? With how many hours you're working, freedom time not being there, and the money not really making sense. So now I feel like it's almost a three-way multiplier of how it's more gradually putting you in more in a direction to want to leave.
Yeah, it was. And the big thing that happened, and like I said, the organization treated me fantastic and I had a lot of opportunities. But the thing about working in a season atmosphere like that is that it's super cyclical. So 1 year turns into 6 super quickly because the season happens and then you're right into renewal season and then you're into sales season, then you ramp up for the season and then the season goes, and that just happens over and over again. So it morphed really quickly. And like I said, I didn't anticipate being up there as long as we did, and I loved it. And so I was happy to do it. But 2020, obviously COVID came around, right?
Yeah.
And it was really the first time that the entire minor league baseball season was canceled. All levels. Major League Baseball didn't have fans, it was a very odd time. The entire minor league baseball season was canceled. And so it was the first time in 5-6 years that I really got to like catch my breath and sit down and be like, is now the time to really evaluate things.
Wow.
And that was really like for as much harm in many ways that COVID caused a lot of people. It was a blessing in disguise for us at the time, I think, because it did cause us to slow down a little bit and reevaluate where we were at.
So a blessing in disguise, really.
Yeah.
One of the weirdest disguises with the whole
band, but definitely
still,
not. Yeah.
That's great, man. Let me ask you this, just because I know your story's, in my opinion, not only an amazing one, but a pretty unique one, and going from operations to what you do now. We'll go over that. But I'd like to ask you, what did you get? Obviously, your work ethic is not in question. Since I've known you, you've always been a very ambitious person. You're very goal-oriented, right? So you put it out there, I'm going to do it, you're going to do it, which I love about you, man. So when you look at this job, the many advancements that you had through the organization, which shows your work ethic and your character at a job, how do you feel, and you can give me a couple of traits or skills or lessons, however you want to put it, what do you feel you brought from that little job line you had there for a bit in that world to what you do now? What did you bring from it?
Yeah, first of all, thank you.
Yeah.
There's a ton of crossover that I never would have expected. Number one, just you touched on the work ethic, right? I was kind of in an interesting situation where I didn't have a lot of family in Spokane or friends at the time. I moved up there for that job.
Right.
And at the time, Lauren was down here. We did long distance for a little bit. So there were 2 or 3 years where that job was my life. And so I poured into it a ton, as you can imagine, just knowing me and then knowing that there weren't a lot of outside distractions. Like that was my baby, and I poured into that job. And I think that's the reason that I did have success, was that, I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it and a lot of hours.
Right.
But then also, coming back to what translated now today, the sales aspect, for sure. Just going on face-to-face and appointments, talking about, we'll get into real estate, I guess, but having that ability to make calls, set appointments, go on appointments, pitch your product or your service, that's invaluable, and that's something that not a lot of people have. And I got to do it in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different scenarios. And at the time, I didn't realize how valuable that was, but looking back, extremely valuable, right?
Right.
Both ticket sales, sponsorship sales, you name it. I had the opportunity to meet with a lot of really interesting people, different personalities, different industries, and have a lot of different experiences along the way with that. So that was a huge help for me. And it took me getting down here and starting in real estate to really understand like how blessed I was to have that background.
For sure. I feel the biggest thing I'm getting from that is learning how to craft your speech and your dialogue to an individual. Everyone's different.
Absolutely. And just being goal oriented, knowing how many, sales, it's a numbers game. Knowing how many calls lead to how many appointments lead to how many sales, and being able to carry that over into real estate where it's bigger ticket sales, obviously, but it still follows in the same shadow. And it was really important.
Well, I love having you back in Arizona. Love
Yeah,
having you and Lauren
absolutely.
back, and
Yep,
our,
yep.
us, both our wives hanging out. Love every bit of that. My question to you is, going from Spokane back to Arizona,
Right.
what moved that, and what made you think about, if it's not going to be here in this world of baseball operations, why was it real estate?
Yeah, great question, man. There was a lot. It wasn't easy to make that decision at all. I think a couple things in particular led to it. So while we were in Spokane, I had a lot of stupid business ideas. I've always had kind of that like knack for like the entrepreneurial sense, and I tried a lot of dumb things and nothing really. A lot of like get rich quick schemes. In my
now you gotta
time
tell us
off.
one. Give us one example.
Like fulfillment by Amazon. I had an idea for it was called the Textured Gentleman, where it would be like a subscription tie box.
Okay.
I once had a product that I thought of in my head where it would be like, when you wear dress shirts,
Yeah.
and they underneath you wear an undershirt, but the undershirt sometimes gets untucked and then it like bunches up.
Yeah.
So I designed in my head this product, and my sister was living in LA at the time in the fashion industry.
Yeah.
So I actually hit her up to have a prototype made. It didn't pan out, but it was basically a one-piece underwear and undershirt product
My
for
God.
men. Again, I'm glad I found real estate because that was never going to work. But
I love the
Yeah.
spirit to try and do something like that.
Yeah, and the reason I mentioned those stupid ideas is because at some point in there I learned about real estate, and it was the only thing that really clicked. Real estate investing, and just it wasn't a get rich quick scheme. It was a long game.
Yeah.
But it was the first time that I'd read anything investment wise, and I was starting to have that like, hey, I need to invest to create a future.
Sure.
Right. And so I started looking at different aspects, and real estate was the only one that really did anything for me, and it just clicked from day one. So Lauren and I purchased a duplex when we were in Spokane. A duplex is basically, in our case, it was 2 units in one. It's a big house.
Yeah.
And we rented out one of the units, lived in the other. It's called house hacking in the industry, but basically the rental income from one of those units covers your living expenses to live in the other one. So it was a great taste of home ownership, a great taste of landlording, a great taste of investing, a great taste of renovations. And so we at that point kind of knew like real estate would always be in our lives in one capacity or another. And that was probably about a year before COVID came around. COVID comes around. I had a lot of time on my hands. I was able to keep my job, which was great. But if there's no baseball season, then there's not a lot for me to do.
Right, but you are
for a
getting
baseball
consistent
team.
pay coming in.
Yeah, and I had a lot more time on my hands than I had in years. So I'd reached out to an agent that I knew in Spokane, and I had approached him and said, hey, I have a little bit of time on my hands. I have a little bit of money. Can I invest with you? Are there any deals you're working on? He was also a avid investor. And he basically said, I don't at the time, but he's like, why don't you just come? You got some time on your hands. Like, come over to my house 3 days a week for a couple hours, and you can just see what I do on a day-to-day basis.
That's awesome.
And so I started doing that. And then one thing led to another, and I ended up managing his transactions on the side. So by the time I moved to Arizona, I had probably managed 100 of his transactions.
Holy cow.
So it was a great experience before jumping in full time. And again, at the time, I didn't know that I didn't want to be a real estate agent per se. I wanted to do real estate investing. Like that was how this whole idea started. And at some point, he kind of approached me and was like, hey, I think you'd actually be really good at this. Have you thought about just getting your license? Like now might be a good time to do it. I know you're planning on moving to Arizona. We had already made that decision that, in a year or so we were going to make that move. And so he encouraged me to do it. And I ended up getting my license. And so that's kind of how like one thing led to another, and the pieces got put into motion to actually like make this move down here, and that real estate was going to be the move as opposed to sports. And it just, kind of things aligned, and it was a lot of deep thinking and introspection, but it all kind of led to this path.
Yeah, which I think is perfect for you, man. Real estate suits you very well. You're a very likable person. People love being around you. You bring a good energy, and you can network the hell out of a room. So
I appreciate that.
I think you got the right path going for you. So now with real estate, now you're full on in this. What do you? Let me start with this. For people who are interested, we've had this conversation before, right? We've talked about people who social media has a big presence in everyone's life. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, even Facebook, I feel is kind of filtering out a little bit, but you still got that around. We had this conversation a while back about people who go into this when they see other personalities out there online being like, I'm a real estate agent and I make so much money. Look at my high rise, all this stuff. And you have people who look at that and think right away, oh my gosh, I have to be a real estate agent. I'm going to make a lot of money right away. And we had this convo about a lot of people entering this field and then realizing, whoa, I thought this was supposed to come naturally to me. I thought I was supposed to be making deals left and right. What's going on? I'm not making any money because real estate's all commission, is it not?
It is. It's 100% commission for 99% of people. There's maybe some avenues out there that aren't, but it's 100% commission. And to answer your question, real estate is an amazing industry, but it's also a very strange industry.
Yeah.
It is extremely easy to get your real estate license.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes with absolutely zero guarantee of any lick of success.
Right.
And so a lot of people, exactly what you said, pay a couple $100, spend 90 hours getting their real estate license, and then they're just dropped on the street or dropped into sometimes an office, most of the time not, and expected to like somehow make money, right?
Yeah.
And there's teams out there, like I'm on a team, we give some kind of mentorship and guidance, but it's a dog-eat-dog world. And everybody out there is looking out for themselves and their success, and there's not a formula most of the time for success for new agents. And I'm super blessed because I came from a world where I got to mentor an agent. I come from a family that has backgrounds in real estate.
Sure.
I had a lot of exposure to the life as a realtor, and I had a year to really like study this and prep for it and understand exactly what I was getting myself into.
Yeah.
Most of the time people don't. And so I feel like I really had an upper hand coming in, but still there was a lot of doubts.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's no guarantee. I think there's some like 50,000 realtors in Arizona alone. And there's not that many homes. Or not that many sales to go around for those agents. So it really is a dog-eat-dog world, and you have to stand out to get any kind of traction in this industry. And I've learned that throughout the years, like just what an odd industry it really is.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, man. I think with any job, any industry you're going to go into, the key thing is to do research on it.
Mm-hmm.
See if it's something you're going to like. See if it aligns with who you are as an individual, right?
Yeah.
Instead of looking at something and saying, oh yeah, I'm going to do this because everyone's making money, everyone's doing this, even though it's not you. I've always said this, and there's no discredit to anyone out there who is in this field and is still doing well, just maybe not feeling it, but I really feel the reality of being in a sales type role where you have to network and it's the numbers you put up and the effort you put out there. The simple saying of you either got it or you don't.
Yeah.
And I want to hear from you, for our viewers, for our listeners out there. If someone is entering into real estate, okay, now they have the full intention to. They're looking at videos, they're looking doing their own research. They're maybe even hearing this episode and saying, well, Sean's doing real estate. He seems to be doing pretty well for himself. What should I expect in my first year of real estate? What should I look at financial wise? Am I looking to already be making six figures? Is that a possibility, or is that something that I'm working towards, but I'm not necessarily going to hit that first year? How much effort am I putting into to really get this going?
Yeah. And that's the other thing that like it's a loaded question because there are about 1,000 different blueprints out there that a new agent can follow.
Yeah.
But they can easily not follow any of them because it's so intimidating, right?
Sure.
And so can you make six figures your first year? Absolutely, you can. Is it rare? It's very rare. More likely, new agents are coming in and they might get a couple deals under their belt that first year while they're kind of ramping up and building a business. And so to anybody looking to get into real estate, like you really need to think about what that financial backing is. I mentor a lot of new agents, and probably the biggest thing that I see in terms of a revolving door is that they just run out of money. And a couple months go by and they don't have the reserves to stick it out, and maybe they could have been a great agent, but they just didn't really plan ahead. So obviously, like I was in a position where Lauren was working full time, so I could kind of take that.
Yeah,
I could kind of take that risk on a little bit. But if you don't have reserves, you don't have a plan, like it's very easy to see why it is such a revolving door in this industry. But to new agents that know that coming in, that have good mentorship, whether they join a team or they know somebody that's doing it at a high level and they're willing to put in the work, it's very doable because it's not that hard of an industry. It just takes a lot of consistency and a lot of rejection to get any kind of traction, especially when you're brand new and you don't have experience, you don't have a book of business. I think there's a lot of reasons that new agents fail, but I think ultimately it's just that they don't see success quickly enough, and they're not willing to just keep going and kind of get over that hump.
Got you. They almost give up sometimes a little too quick before they see their full potential in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard. I always say as an agent, you're three things, right? You're first and foremost, you're a marketer. And being in sales, you need to get your pipeline full. And that's the hardest thing, right? Is to consistently market yourself, whether that be open houses or lead sources online or social media or cold calling or door knocking. There's a million different ways you can get it, but the biggest thing in this industry is to keep people coming in, right? And that's the marketing piece. The sales piece, so you're a marketer, you're a salesperson, and then you're a project manager.
Right.
The sales piece isn't houses. The houses usually sell themselves. That's oversimplifying it. There's intricacies to that, of course, but for the most part, the sales piece is when you're transitioning and you're converting those leads that are coming in to your clients, right?
Right.
You're selling them on why they should be using you and not anybody else. That's really where the only part that sales comes into play.
Yeah.
And then from there, once you get them in the house, from there until the finish line, it's project management.
Yeah.
There's so many parties involved in a real estate transaction. There's two agents, there's a lender, there's a seller, there's a buyer, there's a title company. So there's all these moving parts, and you're a project manager for 30 days to see this thing to the finish line. So if you're not a good marketer, a good salesperson, and a good project manager, then you're kind of up against it. The odds are stacked against you a little bit. So that's like the easiest way that I break it down to newer agents is like, we really need to hone these skills because this is what's going to get you there.
Okay, well, you guys heard it. That's a beautiful breakdown right there. So I'll tell you what, if you're trying to look into this and trying to get into this, maybe follow those three and ask yourself and be real with yourself. Is that you? If it's not you, it's probably not meant for you. Can you still invest? I'm sure. Just hit up Sean Bozigian. He's a great real estate agent.
I love it.
Sean, what makes you, man, and I'm biased, so I'm going to already say I know what makes you a great person, a great agent who I trust fully with any transaction to go find something that I'm going to love. But for the people out there who might be watching, maybe they're saying, real estate's not for me, but I like this kid, Sean. I like what he's putting out there. What should make me trust you to be my agent? What separates you from the 50,000 plus agents out there in Arizona?
Yeah. There's a couple of things. I think it's market knowledge. Like I'm a numbers geek. Like I know the market very well. And when we're in a transitioning market like we are right now, you need to, right? It was probably very easy when prices were going up and rates were at 2% and everybody was a winner. But in a market where there are a lot of external factors at play and a lot of economic factors that are going on, you really need somebody that has your best interest in mind. And that's something that I do. And I've been an investor. I've been a buyer. I've relocated. Like I have a lot of the experience that my clients are looking for. And so I'm able to pour in that firsthand experience for them. And then, I just at this point, I've done enough of these transactions. I've been involved in hundreds of real estate transactions where I like to say that no two transactions are the same and there's no such thing as an easy transaction.
Yeah.
But there are transactions that follow certain trends. And you can imagine that at this point, I've seen just about everything. So I can guide my clients at a very high level. It's a very emotional time. Buying a house, selling a house.
Oh, yeah.
It's extremely emotional. And you need an agent that can set their emotions aside and look at it like a business transaction and keep the important details at the forefront. And that's what I try to pride myself on.
Yeah, absolutely. Bam, right there. Sean Bozigian. Go ahead and hire him. That's going to be your guy right there.
I love it.
All right. So, Sean, I like to do this thing on the show where we talk about people's future.
Yeah.
I always say 5 to 10, but I always do 10. So I think for now, moving forward, it's going to be the 10-year plan or 10-year vision. Right now, real estate, you got a couple of good investments going on yourself. You've got that duplex still. You got another place, I think, in Scottsdale, and then you got your house, correct?
Correct.
All right. So where do you see yourself now, or where do you see yourself in 10 years from now? Do you see yourself building, this legacy you've got with real estate? Is it more building on the investment side? Is it both? Is it having maybe your own agency?
Yeah.
What does that look like for Sean Bozigian?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's always been the goal to phase. What I'm doing now is more of, I love what I'm doing now. I truly do. Like working with my clients is extremely fun for me. The reason that I got into real estate in this capacity, at least, was to ultimately be able to continue building our family book of investments and business and development. And those are the things that really interest me. And that's like the forever play. That's the longevity. That's the, that's the generational piece. That's the thing that I want to be able to leave behind to my kids and my grandkids.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm always trying to keep my eyes on, is that long-term goal. And what I'm doing in the middle helps fund those goals, gets me the experience, gets me in front of the right people to ultimately continue to build that. So 10 years down the road, I would love to be less. I would love to have more time freedom than I do right now.
Sure.
And there's pieces that I'm extremely blessed right now to have freedom, but ultimately I would love to have those investments kind of cover what I'm doing on a day-to-day right now.
Yeah.
And be able to pour more and more into that, get my kids involved, get my wife involved, like really make it a family business.
Sure.
And that's always been the dream for me, and that's something that I always kind of keep on the forefront.
I love that. I think it's a great vision for you.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to happen. Knowing you, it's going to happen. So it's going to be exciting to see how this man does in about 10 years.
I appreciate that, man.
So another thing I'd ask you here, because I'm sure they're curious. I know I keep hyping you up on the golf train here, but let's just say, real estate aside, let's just say you win the lottery, or maybe you just get this line of clients that just keeps giving you houses and you have a lot more time open. Is there any piece of you that might think, maybe I might try for the Corn Ferry Tour?
Absolutely not. But I would love to be like a club. I have this vision of like that country club life, me hanging out at the clubhouse, playing in the men's leagues, kids running around on the golf course, wife and her friends hanging out, doing their thing. Like that's kind of that life that I dream of. So maybe not Corn Ferry, I could never do that, but I would love to be like a club champion at a country club or something like that.
Beautiful.
That's probably a more realistic goal, and someday for sure.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's put the lottery in. So you win the lottery. Okay. Now money's not an issue.
Okay.
I just almost, I feel like I have to hear it. Yeah. I have to hear from you, because it almost bugs me that I'm not. Sean, you've won the lottery. You got all this money. You wouldn't tell me you wouldn't try at least once in your life. Give it a year, 2 years to try making the tour.
Sure. If I win the lottery, there's a lot of things that hypothetically I would give a shot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be happy to go embarrass myself knowing that money's not an object, and I could come back to my multi-million-dollar house on a golf course here in Arizona and a vacation home somewhere in Flagstaff.
Yeah.
And I'd be okay taking a shot at it and embarrassing myself for a little bit.
Okay. I love that. Thank you for finally saying that. I think it might just be me always seeing you play so well where I think, why don't you just give it a shot, Sean? But then you do always tell me, like, dude, these courses are nothing.
Waylon's selling himself short here too for everybody out there, because Waylon went from like not golfing at all to now all of a sudden just like being able to shoot in the 80s, and
I wish, Sean, like high 80s. I think the best
that's
one
in the 80s,
83.
buddy.
Yeah,
that's
you're
in the
right.
80s.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Super impressive. Those of you that golf know that shooting in the 80s is not easy, and especially having no background in golf is super impressive. Like when I moved back down here and we started going out, I was like, where did this come from, man?
I use it really. I felt my first job in healthcare really taught me, because you get to hang out with more people in upper management as well, and it's a good networking opportunity. Right. It's where I started with golf, right? So it was starting to make an impression on some people where they'd be like, "Hey, Waylon," right? The CFO would be like, "Waylon, hey, do you want to go golf this weekend?" Or director, "Let's go golf this weekend." And then I got to say, "Oh, I don't golf. I never golfed." And it wasn't until my former director said, "Bud, you're going to need to learn to golf. And it's a fun sport, and it's going to be great." Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where it started from. But it's been wonderful. I love it. It's a good time. Now, Sean, as we're about to pretty much wrap things up here, do you have anything else out there that you like to say? Anything about what's going on with you? Anything to look forward to? These people to see you?
No, I mean, if anybody would like to connect, what I like to do for clients, and I promise this isn't just a self-plug, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. But, at Sean Bosey is my Instagram. Feel free to follow me there. In terms of stuff that you can look out for, I try to keep people informed on not only what's going on in the market, listings that I have, interesting things that I see that I think would be helpful for buyers and sellers, because by the time you get in a transaction, it comes at you so quickly that a lot of times knowing what you're getting into before, like the more we can start planning, is super helpful. I like to meet with buyers and sellers as far in advance as a year just to really put those pieces together. Yeah. Like I said, it is super emotional, and the more you can have up front done. Yeah. I know you've bought before, and it can really ease the mind. So no, go ahead and follow me on social media. That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me and to stay up to date on what I'm doing, any new exciting things that I have going on. But I think that's probably my best recommendation.
Perfect, brother. Well, we'll make sure too to have his information in the description of the episode so you guys can see it. We'll tag you on Instagram so they can follow you as well. Are people out there who are just curious to know a little bit maybe about you? Maybe they're a real estate agent. They want to hear a little bit about your work style and how you can help them, or people who are just interested in the field itself. Can they reach out to you as well, so outside from buyers and sellers?
Absolutely. Cool. Yeah. Love connecting with other agents. Love exchanging tips. And that's the cool thing about being in real estate, is that there's so many different ways to make money and find success and find happiness truly. And I love connecting with other agents and just learning what they're doing. So 100%.
Okay. Last question here. Just
Let's
came
get
when
it.
I run. Little Bozigian growing up right now.
Yeah.
And I know you're a big sports guy. We covered so many of them, especially golf. If you were to focus on one and excel in one, which one would you want it to be for him?
Oh gosh. The correct answer that I should say is whatever he wants to do, right?
Well, yeah, of course, whatever he'd like to do.
If dad has anything to do with it, golf.
Yeah,
golf. It's expensive as a parent,
absolutely.
But I think I'm 5'8", Lauren's 5'2". I don't think our son is going to any NBA, MLB, NFL. I think the more we can try to hone in that golf swing,
sure.
probably the better we're gonna be. And it gets me another excuse to get out there more and more.
Yeah.
So golf, I'd be happy with baseball. I'd be happy with soccer. Probably no football. That would give mom a heart attack.
But, oh gosh, I can't imagine.
Anything short of that, I think we'd be happy. So he's an athletic little guy. He's already given us a run for our money. So he'll be out there before we know it.
I love it. Well, I'm hoping with my firstborn, when that happens, son, or daughter, I'd like to put her in golf as well. Let her be one of those few Peruvian Americans out there.
Let's
doing
go.
their thing.
Yeah, I can see it now.
Well, any shout outs to anyone here before we end the episode? Maybe to wife, maybe to boy.
Yeah, you put me on the spot now. I guess I got to shout out.
Only because I feel like Lauren, but like, okay, you're not gonna say anything to me, Sean?
Yeah, I love you, babe. And shout out to Kelly too for allowing Waylon to take some time to chase this vision and make this happen. So time is very valuable. We work hard enough as it is on our primary jobs and businesses, and being able to do this is not only fun, but it's a little bit of a break from that. So thank you to the wives that allow us to do it.
Amen to that. Thank you, Kelly. Love you too. All right, guys. Well, hey, I really appreciate everyone's time today for this week's episode with Sean Bozigian. Hit him up. He doesn't bite. He's an amazing guy. Let him know your thoughts. Let him know whatever you got going on. But again, thank you so much. And a special shout out here to the band Hannah for the intro and outro music. You guys are great. Check out their new cover on Knocking on Heaven's Door.
Ooh.
Pretty solid. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. Congrats, guys. I think that cover's awesome. Hoping it becomes huge out there and people are listening to it. And then another shout out and thank you to my friends over at XYZ Studio here with Zeke. Thank you so much for letting us use your space. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow. I'm on Instagram at Let's Talk About This Way, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Give it a listen. We have plenty of amazing stories coming up, plenty of amazing stories we've already covered, and now we've got Sean Bozigian on there. So thank you guys so much, and hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. Catch y'all.
Peace.